Hey, thank you for clicking on this video. This is another video with me and my brother doing a podcast, a little conversation through FaceTime here on the WiseWorks channel. I just want to start off this week with just a little bit of an ad for our YouTube channel at WiseWorks Entertainment. If you would like to, we would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. We are just a couple subscriptions away from getting 100 on the channel, and we really appreciate all you guys who have already subscribed. But if you're new or you've been watching and you haven't yet subscribed, we'd love to know that you're in the audience. We'd love to see you actually physically here instead of you being a phantom viewer. So yeah, want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it, and we're very thankful that you guys are all watching every single week. So my brother has an idea for a topic, and I'm going to let you take it and introduce it.
Okay, this week we're going to be talking about Joseph Beck. I want to say when young teens, young teens, he had an idea for a book he wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
He called it Book of Raiders, like raider, like you're going to raid something. And I'm going to talk about my perspective from it first, and then he can kind of correct me, because I think what I remember of it, it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's, in my opinion, I always saw it as like a mix between like Spiderwick Chronicles and Lord of the Rings. It's kind of a mix between both.
Okay, I need to say first, I had come up with the idea of like this philosophy that involves like a book and everything before I knew anything about the story of Spiderwick Chronicles. And then they came out with a movie, and I was like, man, I felt like I had my idea kind of stolen when it first happened. I was young, but I was I came up with this organically. And then they came out with this movie. I guess it was already a book or something, and I just didn't know about it. But I just wanted to get that out there at the beginning.
So what it was about is a kind of this book that when you read it, things come alive, basically, whenever you read it. And I remember you got a lot of inspiration from Lord of the Rings, because it was kind of the same time we were starting to watch Lord of the Rings.
And read the books.
Reading the books, yeah. So I remember there was a lot taken from Lord of the Rings that some was the original idea, some was a little bit stolen.
Yeah.
But I remember it was kind of like a quest type thing, kind of like Lord of the Rings, where they're going with this book. They didn't want, I don't remember all the names of it, but like kind of the bad side to get the book because they were going to use it to kind of win the war or whatever.
Yeah.
And so these characters, the main character, he was a raider who he was one who found the book, and he was having this quest with a bunch of other people to
very similar to Fellowship,
very similar to Lord of the Rings, to basically keep the book out of the enemy's hand, basically. So how about you start talking about what you as?
You did spring this idea on me, and I don't know really where to start. There's a lot I could talk about, but I would say that my initial, what you're describing, is what I shared with you when we were a lot younger. It was, I would write something down and I'd be like, hey, read this or something and see if you liked it. I would just like handwrite on a notepad and just like write out these ideas. And I took a lot of inspiration from Lord of the Rings, too much that when I stand back and look at it, it was pretty much just like a weird off-brand remake of Lord of the Rings, or at least the concept was. I would say that the villains in this story, I think, were called like Tors or something, like Tore or just Tor, something of that nature. And so they're very similar to orcs, except they would combined the orcs with the ring wraiths, where they would wear like these black cloaks and hoods, but they're actually like ugly creatures underneath. and they were like the villains. And then the Raiders were actually similar to hobbits. They weren't as small as hobbits, but they were.
I remember because I came to you and I said, I was like, they're way too similar to hobbits. How you have to change that somehow. And you said there was two different kinds of raiders.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me
there was
really tall ones and then there was really short ones.
Yeah.
So
I changed it to where there was going to be like these raiders, and they're known by they were named based on what they did. So there's like a world like Lord of the Rings that has different kind of species of people, and so they were like considered raiders. And what it is they look like humans. They don't like go around barefoot like hobbits. They wear shoes like everybody else. But there's like a smaller, not super small like hobbits, but there's like a smaller version of them. But the thing that they had was that they had big hands. And the thing was they did a lot of movements. They were really good at climbing. They were really good at stealing stuff. They were really nimble people. And then there was another species of the same kind that fell into the raider species, but they were almost like giant ones. But they also did similar things, but they worked as like armies, and they were more like Vikings. They lived in mountains, and they would like create these flying machines that they would fly out of mountains and like glide down onto these small villages, and they would like attack them from the sky and come down and steal their stuff. And they were also a part of raider people as well, but they were bigger. They were bigger than like the normal sized human. And so there was like two different kinds, and the smaller ones were a little bit more like hobbits, but they were a little bit more mischievous. They were a little bit more, they got themselves into trouble. A lot of things that they had, they stole, and they were like, that's why they're called raiders. They would come in and they would just like take people's stuff. And they lived on that kind of thing. They didn't like work jobs, or they didn't have occupations. It was like they would just come in. If they needed something, they would go into like a village and steal it and be discreet, where the bigger raiders would like actually come in like Vikings and like take over towns and steal everything.
Yeah, I remember some of it was very similar to Lord of the Rings, I guess, with the majority of it, but you were also pulling from other things too. And I remember the reason why I brought this up, because someone asked me your film idea, your dream film idea.
Yeah.
And I remember you were writing the book, but you wanted to make this to a film eventually. It was like your dream film, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's probably not is anymore, but
well, you'd be surprised.
but that was kind of an idea of your book, this story that you were creating. And I remember, how much of it did you actually get finished? Because I remember
I wrote a few
chunk of it.
Now, I was really young when I was writing. I don't know. I'm still not good at writing, but I really wasn't good then. And I was handwriting everything. So I probably wrote what I would consider probably like between 5 and 10 chapters of the first book, like by hand. And they were short chapters. They weren't like super long or anything. It just kind of felt like, okay, we're changing topics. We're going to a different character. We're going to end the chapter here. And it might be like, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages of handwritten material. And that's kind of as far as I wrote. I didn't actually take that story and write it down on the computer at any point, because I was a lot younger when I started coming up with this. You're going to the idea of a dream film. Well, I didn't really realize it at the time, but when I was younger, I thought, I want to create a story that's like magical, maybe not magical, but like fantasy story that's really awesome, that has battles, that has a whole bunch of different characters that people can feel nostalgic if they're fans of. But I was like, I want to write something that's so big, it's going to be, I feel like it would be a lot more than just 3 movies or 4 movies, or even just like 2 movies, something like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think that it would at that age. But now that I kind of translate, if I took my childhood ideas and translate it into today's world, I would say it would have to be a show of some kind,
That
multi-season
would be
show.
cool. Like
Yeah,
a multi-season show.
but
That would be cool.
I would say that the idea of Raiders and the idea of what the villains are and what they represented and how they looked, all of that has changed. But it's actually shifted to where, like, this world that I was creating, actually I haven't gotten rid of the story completely. It's just changed over the years to where I still think
Yeah.
I still think I would love to at some point in my life write these stories and make films or a show out of them, and do something that's really cool that's in the fantasy realm. I will say
Yeah.
that it's shifted more towards not so much like, it probably doesn't involve a book really, maybe, probably not though, and it doesn't really
I
involve like raiders as much either. It involves more like with piracy and stuff in my
Yeah,
mind.
I would definitely say I know most of our ideas and things we stemmed off of were more fantasy
Hmm.
medieval, like swords and
Yeah.
um, sword fighting and that kind of genre. Because I know, like, we had a lot of swords. We played with swords, and
Yeah,
that was the
we've
majority of
talked
the
about
films
that.
we wanted to do. So that definitely spurred the what we wanted to create,
Hmm.
and um, everything that we were thinking about at the time, the type of shows we want, the movies we wanted to make, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Did you Did you ever come up with an idea or something? Like, have you ever had a desire to want to write a story, or are you more of like, I just want to write some scripts and, make movies? Or was there like something that you're like, I want to write a book and then I want to create a show or a movie for it? Is there something that you can see in yourself that might have spurred that idea or that kind of inspiration from?
Not really, not off that for that topic or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so no, I don't. But I mean, I do have a couple film ideas
Yeah.
that I want to make in the future. But um, for books and things, like, I wanted to create a story out of a book and everything.
Yeah.
No, not really.
I would say there's
So
something that's that different. It's different between me and you. You really like films. I really like films, but there's also a part of me that wants to create just stories, and I know writing is a
mhm,
big part of that. And novels and things. It's where a lot of people have got their fantasy ideas and really cool story ideas throughout history. And so there's something about that that's very attractive to me. And I have written, like, started quite a number of different ideas for stories as far as novels go. And I guess it's there's a whole world inside my head that I want to put on
yeah,
pages.
like,
But I I don't know. It's something that I know is time consuming. And I know, what do you think about this? Give me your thoughts on this. Do you think that there is, for a filmmaker, there's ever a thing that you kind of say, okay, this is the pinnacle of my creativity. This is the pinnacle of what my dream is in the movie making industry, or the movie making industry, of saying, if I can create this idea that I have, that's going to be like my biggest dream film, that's going to be like, I'm going to spend my whole year, my whole life working on this one story to present to the world. Do you think there's something like that in filmmakers or creators that you might resonate with?
yes and no. I think everybody goes through stages
Mm-hmm.
of life, and so um, having one stage when you were preteen, you wanted to do like a fantasy, medieval type story.
Yeah.
Now you might be changed. You might still want to make it, but um, you want to make something different. Also, you
Yeah.
have different ideas. So I think it's all about how you evolve and, like, what films that you've made, how you grow. But then you also have phases in life on what you want to create, what you like, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So I know you say you want to make it, but at first it was just a book, and
Yeah.
then it was a film, and now you think that it might be a great show idea.
Yeah,
So
it
then you're
evolves.
evolving in how you want to create this and what you want it to be.
Hmm.
And will it ever get made? I don't know.
I
We'll
might
see. It's
try.
only time
I
can
might
tell.
try. I think
But
I think for me it's something that I kind of say, yes, I'm going to make a lot of films in my career, but I kind of see that as like the story that I am going to work on my entire life and I'm going to present it to the world at some point, you know? That's how I
yeah,
kind of view it. And um you're right, it may never get there, but I'm going to try. I mean, why not? You know?
yeah. So that was us just talking about something from our past, kind of like a story time, kind of.
Yeah.
Just coming up with an idea we had. Um, show you, yes, we're doing films and stuff now, but we've been doing this forever. Like just
Creating
having
stories.
ideas and
Yeah.
yeah, like even
Being
as young little croutons, we were just that was our dream to do that, and we're always wanting to do what we can,
yeah.
film, books, just storytelling.
Yeah.
I think we just have that niche in us that
Yeah, that
we've always wanted to do
desire to want to
and
just be
create.
creative through creating
Yeah.
worlds, and creating characters.
So that's a little story time
Hmm.
to end this off.
All right.
Do you have any final words,
Um,
Joseph?
I don't know. I think we should talk sometime a little bit about what our personal like list of things that we would like to do with our career, because we do think a lot about, we're starting a company and we're going to grow that company,
Hmm.
but like what is it that we have a desire, like a small list of things that we would say, oh, you want to make up your career doing, you know I think we should talk about
Yeah,
that at some point, because I think that's good for other people to define, but it's also good for us to define to each other and to try to talk through that and whatnot.
yeah. So I guess maybe a future episode
Yeah.
you'll look out for.
All right.
But for now, I guess this episode's finished.
Thank you
So
for watching,
yep,
and we'll see you in
and
the next
have a
video.
yep.